Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. We're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about fundraising analytics and show you the constituent intelligence platform that we've built, and more specifically, the CI Hub, which is the core of that and gives us the ability to give you 160 plus, now at 170, I think, pre-built advanced fundraising analytics that cover all of the ways you would want to look at your data from your existing donors. We're focused on existing donor data versus prospect data around donors that have never engaged with you. All right, so where we're going to start, you know that your environment is data rich, but insight poor. You have years of donor history, but it's hard to leverage for a whole variety of reasons. The reporting tools that are built into most of the CRMs that nonprofits use today, Razor's Edge, Virtuous, Salesforce.com, etc., sit in front of very complex databases, and that makes generic reporting tools very difficult to get right. So your data sits in silos within a single system, and it's hard to kind of merge it all together the way you need to. So what that means is most organizations have to spend a tremendous amount of effort extracting data, reassembling it the way they would like to look at it, and building analytics around that. That can be error prone, and it takes a lot of time. The risk is that you miss a lot of things when you're doing things manually. And real data analysis requires, in many cases, a dedicated effort by one of your most senior people, or bringing in an expensive data scientist or consultant, or hiring a way more expensive database administrator, report writer, software developer, etc., than your organization would otherwise need. This is what we hear all the time. My data people are already stretched thin with our day-to-day requirements. I'm spending way too much time crunching donor data. I've got inexperienced fundraisers. I need ways to help them. We're leaving a lot of money on the table each year. All of these are comments that have come from our customers and people we've talked to at various nonprofits. And this is what we set out to solve. Historically, we built custom automated bespoke reports that help organizations see what happened. I call them scorekeeping reports. These are reports that tell you what happened in the past, and we can build those in very custom ways so that you can present them to your board the way you would like, the way they would like to see them. But the real return on investment of those is the savings of time. Because they're automated, nobody in your organization has to invest hours or days every month getting them ready. The other advantage is they can be updated on a daily basis automatically, so you're always working with current information. But there's not a huge return on investment from that. And we wanted to flip that around a little bit. So we wanted to build something that was forward-looking, allowed you to get more revenue out of your existing data by connecting with your donors in ways that worked best for them. By studying the data, we can see when certain donors would like to be contacted. We can see which donors 5 times a year is too much for, which donors once a year is enough, which donors want to hear from you on a more regular basis. We can give you health checks to see how you're doing versus prior years. All these kind of things that help you maximize the revenue each and every year are things that force us to look at not just what happened in the past, but what's happening right now and what's likely to happen in the future. One of the key tenets of RFM analysis is segmentation. And a segment of donors is a group of donors that have in the past acted similarly. And if you compare that segment to other groups of donors that have in the past acted similarly, those donors will tend to act similarly in the future. Can't predict what an individual donor will do, but you can predict with a pretty high degree of accuracy what groups of donors will do en masse. So that's what we work off of. We really, most of these analytics are based on RFM, recency, frequency, monetary amount of donations, and we're really digging through your gift history to do all of this. So we have built what we call the constituent intelligence framework, and there's 3 pillars to that. The first is analysis analytics. We've got a whole package of analytics that give you a 360-degree view of what's happened in the past, what trends you're in, and we do that at the organizational level, at the segment level, and down to the individual donor level, particularly for your most important donors. The second pillar are what we call levers. There are 7 levers that you have, 7 ways that your existing donor base can either give more, give less, stop giving, give less frequently, etc. There's 7 of those that you can impact, and we try to give you all of the visibility you need to be able to work most effectively across those 7 levers. And then the third pillar is health checks, real-time pulse, updated daily, what's going on this year versus what happened in prior years over the same time period, in the same months, etc. So all of these are built into the constituent intelligence framework, and they're all pre-built analytics that are available to you a day after we implement. The analysis analytics. Before you can optimize, you must understand. And so these analytics establish the foundational truth of your fundraising program and let you really see what's happening. What's your revenue concentration? How much risk do you have there? What's going on in each segment year over year? I'll show you some examples of that in a minute. What's the donor life cycle look like in your organization, etc. This is something that we believe is really important, this kind of visibility. This is what we call a waterfall analysis. So this is for the top donor segment of a particular organization. You can see this looks at the amount they raised, not last fiscal year, but the fiscal year before that. So at the end of 24, they raised $6 million from their top donors. And then we look at what happened to that $6 million of donation over the course of 2025. 1.9 million of that was just lost to lapses. The same donors that gave this 1.9 in 2024 didn't give anything in 2025. We had another 3.2 million that was lost to decreases. So these donors that gave 3.2 million less in 2025, they gave something, but they gave 3.2 million less than in 2024. We got a little bit of a pickup, 180,000 from donors who gave in 2024, and they increased their giving by 180,000 in total across 17 donors in 25. And then we had, from prior years, 22 recaptured donors in the top segment that came back in. Recaptured donors are easier to acquire than new donors, and they have a higher lifetime value, so they're important. We got 1.3 million or a little more from recaptured donors. So at the beginning of 2025, if you knew this was what was going to happen, you'd be starting $3.5 million in the hole, which means you'd have to find $3.5 million in new top segment donors just to get back to the same fundraising level as the year before. So what this tells us is we should focus on in the top segment, these donors and these donors, maybe a little bit on these, see if we can improve this. You might think we're doing pretty well here, but we need to look at historical data to see how many of these we just naturally recapture and see if that's an area we should put some focus. So we do this for each segment. Middle segment performed a little better. Overall, they started the year before they acquired a single new middle segment donor. They raised about $40,000 or about $25,000 more than they did the year before. At the bottom segment is even better than that. Had a really good year on a percentage basis, but this is still not very many dollars. $62,000 in increases out of the bottom segment. A little bit in recaptures. They lost 15,000 from lapsed bottom donors, but you know, they had a reasonable percentage increase. However, if I'm looking at where to apply resources, this 62,000 pales in comparison to these big numbers up here. So this organization is going to want to spend a lot more effort on their top level donors. That might mean hiring another one or more major gift officers, or assigning a lot of those responsibilities elsewhere to executives in the organization, things like that. This kind of data can inform you of that. And then the rest of the analytics, the levers, things like that, they tell you who. They give you the individual detail at the segment level and the individual donor level to identify which donors are showing they're decreasing, which donors are lapsing, which donors have been increasing their gifts, things like that. We identify 7 levers, and these are the 7 levers. Kind of talked about a lot of these. One I haven't touched on yet is the new donor journey through their third gift. In most organizations, when we look at the data, once you get to a third gift, that donor's lifetime value goes up significantly over other new donors. And so we want to really focus on the donor journey through the third gift. And you'll see, we'll show analytics for a lot of these things when we get into the product itself. But this is what we're focused on. These 7 levers, this within your existing donor base, these 7 levers drive everything. The last pillar is what we call health checks, and we include quick wins in there. These are a number of progress tracking analytics, so you can see your year-to-date performance against maybe a 3-year historical baseline or rolling 12-month. We do both. We'll show you month over months. We look at things like high lift donors, which those are donors who in the past in a particular month did something big that drove the performance of that month. Donors tend to give on similar schedules across the calendar year. So you want to try to make your big asks on the schedule in the months that they're most comfortable with and have shown you in the past they're more willing to give in. We also have this quick access to like diamonds in the rough. These are little prospect lists that change on an ongoing basis based on what donors have been doing. And if you're just looking, if you have somebody who says, what should I do today? They can go right to one of these and they can start focusing on donors that are showing potential that they want to get more engaged with your organization. All of these analytics include a whole variety of cool tech. So we've got there's some sophisticated statistical analysis built in there, some really complex data manipulation, so we can look at things one-to-many ways, things like that. We've got probability modeling, whole variety of things that go in there. Before we fully deploy an organization, we do an analysis. The first day that your analytics run, there are 3 analytics in there that we use to run about an 8-way segmentation analysis across a variety of statistical models, so we can find statistically the best fit for your segment levels. The cutoff for a top segment donor, a middle segment donor, and a bottom segment donor. You shouldn't pick those randomly. They should be based on the data. Again, donors that behave similarly in the past will tend to behave similarly in the future. So you want to plot all that and let the statistical analysis tell you which donors are most similar versus saying, a major gift is $10,000 and up, and a mid-level donor gives 1,000 or less per year, and a bottom donor gives 100 a year, something like that. Everything you do downstream will be more effective if you use a good statistical basis for your segmentation. And we do that for you. We set all that up during the implementation process. All right, so what does the implementation process look like? It's pretty easy. Takes less than an hour. We work with you to determine which gifts out of all your gift data we should include. You don't want to include redundant gifts, so we decide how we handle soft credits and things. You may not want to include certain types of gifts. Some organizations have things like ticket sales that they record as a gift, or they have street level collections where maybe they encourage students to try to raise money either from other students or from other people at a very small level. And having a large number of $5, $10, $20 gifts in your data can skew the segmentation analysis when that's not really your target fundraising market. So we'll do some conversations with you and talk about what we should include and shouldn't include as your core fundraising market. And then once we have that, we run that segmentation analysis. And within 2 days of your platform going live, it'll have your actual segments defined in it. So we connect with Razor's Edge, Salesforce.com, Virtuous, doesn't matter, just about anything. The data we're pulling is relatively simple. It's just gift history data is really all we need, and a little bit of a way to identify who individual constituents are. Once that's done every night, our platform generates 160 plus analytics for you, and those are available for you first thing in the morning. If you want to update them during the day, we'll have a method for that by the first of the year. If you have an emergency and you need to update them during the day, there's a cheat code we can give you. You call us, we tell you how to do it, or we'll do it for you, and we'll update them real time. But everybody will have that capability by the beginning of the year. Doesn't get used often. Giving Tuesday is the kind of time where you might want to use it, but other than that, it's not likely to be used often, but it'll be there. And then once you start digging through the analytics, it's easy to take these. They're all created as Excel files, so it's easy to take those actionable lists and import them right into a query in Razor's Edge and pull up all your donor history, so you can type right on the donor records. You can also filter and just distribute the Excel, however you want to use it. And then you'll be in a position to make data-driven decisions that drive an increase in fundraising revenue. So there's 170 metrics now. I've been saying 160. We crossed 170 yesterday. We are always looking for suggestions for new ones. I don't think we'll add too many more because we've covered about everything. But if you've got one that we think that lots of organizations can get value from, we'll add it. There's no cost for that. We'll build it and we'll put it in. We can't do custom for everybody. This platform's not designed for that, and it's not priced like that, as you'll see soon. But the idea is, get your organization out of building reports and analytics and keep them focused on building relationships. Now I'm going to get out of the presentation and show you what the UI for this looks like, because this is what's really exciting. We'll come back to this later. So this is it. This is the entire platform on one screen. We'll start here. I'm in the month of November. There are 20 or so analytics for the month of November that we think you should consider looking at. This is a pretty common one. Most people are doing this already. This is a simple anniversary report, although it might have more useful data than yours. It's got the last gift amount, first gift, consecutive years giving, average gift amount, average months between gifts, total years with at least one gift, total giving. So this first person, it's been 11 months since they made a gift, which is a little concerning because they've given 9 years in a row. Their average gift amount is $6,700. Their last gift was $6,000. So again, this is somebody we don't want to lose. They've given 10 years, 10 out of 11, I guess, or 10 years total. They've made 12 total gifts. So this is somebody we should be in contact with to make sure they're going to give again. That's the kind of information that's in these analytics. It's very actionable with a lot of context around it to really help you decide what to do next and how to have a good conversation with that donor. This is another one. These are donors showing increased giving potential. There's a flag here for donors that have made a gift that's at least 2 times their typical annual or average annual giving. So this donor in 2025 gave $5,000. Their biggest gift ever was $15,000. That's somebody you should consider targeting for a larger gift again. So you can see each one of these is different. It's got, there's a key question, like this one, lapsing first time middle and top donors. So the question it answers is which recent new middle and top donors look like they're lapsing, gives you a recommended action. Every one of these analytics has a resources page, so you can understand what this analytic is telling you, how it's built, etc. This is really helpful if you have inexperienced fundraisers, which most organizations do these days, and you want to decide who gets assigned what. You don't have to handhold them. They can read these resource pages and get a good understanding of what they should do with this data. This is the button. You saw me hit that a couple of times to launch the analytic itself. At the top here is the navigation. So there are a couple of ways to find things. The first is by month, and there are reports that'll change each month. So some of these down here, high lift donors last year in January and high lift donors this year in November. A high lift donor, you can see if I hover over it, it gives me a little more description. So this one identifies donors who gave more in a specific target month of the current fiscal year than their personal average for that same month over the last 3 years. So they helped lift that month up. They helped raise the revenue that month because they gave more in that month than they've historically given. In December, I'm on the December month. I want to know who those donors were for last year so I can target them for some special thank yous. In December, I also want to know who those donors were last year in January, because the expectation is they might do that again if I give them the right messaging. So I want to know that. In addition to January, I think we've got, February as well. So again, I can forward look and start my communication plans for those donors that last February gave more than their prior 3-year average in that month. And then I can see the current month as well. So those are some of the analytics that change month over month. Some of these will be the same in every month. I just toggle through the months. This all content gets me access to all 170 analytics. So if I want to look for a particular one, we have one called the linchpin dashboard. That's where those waterfalls came from. All 7 levers are represented on this one. I'm not going to dig too far into it. We talked about the these. And that's really what I wanted to show there, but it's the easy one for me to search because it's got a simple name. Now, this little toggle here moves me between months and the analytics and the levers. So remember, the core analytics all start with a number 1. So these are the focus. These are the year-over-year donation trends. Analytics 1.1. So that's got my historical summary data, year-over-year analysis. So I'll show you this real quick. This is kind of basic stuff: number of donors, number retained, retention rate, how many new donors. This top level is the current year. The one before is last finished year. Total gifts received, average giving per donor, median giving per donor, average individual gift amount, those kind of things. Let's see what else is in here. Year-over-year retention by segment, an interesting one. So my top segment in 2024, I had 81 donors, 40 of them retained. In the middle segment, I had 262, 128 retained. This is Excel, so I can easily just throw a filter on here. And if I only want to look at, if I want to compare my middle segment year over year, I can see like that. So all of these analytics are built in Excel, so they're easy for you to manage, easy for your people to manage, etc. You can drill down further into them with these filters. And so I can toggle through all of the analytics. You know, revenue concentration, these are my top 100 donors. Got a top 1,000 donor, top 50 gift last year, top 50% revenue concentration. All of this is important to understand for your organization. So the top 50% of my giving represents 99% of what I got the prior year. 98% of the cumulative year giving. So that means the bottom 50% of my donors contribute very little to the overall revenue of the organization. So something to think about how you manage them cost effectively. They are, you know, they are fertile. They are, I don't know how fertile, but they are ground for future donors that'll give more. But it should help guide where you put your resources. Skip through a few of these. These are, as you can see, there's multiple analytics for each section. Let's look at the summary version of $1 million threshold donors. So what's the typical journey of a donor who reaches the $1 million cumulative milestone look like? Cumulative giving milestone. So this organization, I've had $21 million plus donors. The average months to their $1 million threshold was 219. The average amount before that was 650,000. The average threshold gift that put them over $1 million was 595,000. On average, they made 76 gifts before they went over $1 million. And their average total giving, probably skewed by some large ones, is 2.1 million. Other statistics along there. And then for anything that there's a summary report for, there's also generally a detail behind it. So you can see those $1 million plus donors right here, their total giving, their threshold gift amount, etc. Let's see, these are the 1.8. These are analytics that we use, or you can use for a multi-year revenue projection. There's actually a back test too. This model doesn't always work well for all organizations. If you run a every couple of years you run a big campaign and you get a big spike and then you go down for a couple years. This model is not going to be that accurate, so you don't want to rely on it. So, but a lot of organizations don't operate that way. So we give you the ability to back test the model and see how well it fits your organization. And then we get into the levers. This is that linchpin I showed you with the waterfalls. There's a whole section of analytics on lapse mitigation. So we're looking for things like time between gifts extending, number of gifts per year decreasing. That's these gift count trends. This one looks at active top donors this year versus last year. So these are your most important donors for this organization, at least. We show we can show these flags like this donor is down greater than 25% year over year for the same period. So those are donors you want to keep an eye on. We're relatively early in the year, still in November on a July 1 fiscal year, but those are donors you want to keep an eye on. Let's see what else is in here. This is a summary view, gives you a high level view. Oops, sorry. That's the resource. This is the analytic itself. So you've got two kind of urgent, critical risk, high level donors. Recent giving, $3,700. They got a risk score of 9. That resource page explains the risk score, or explains what goes into the risk score. So we look at these, and you can use this to say, okay, these 144 and these 6 in the middle donor, these 200 need some special attention. There's a lot of money at risk there. Same thing up here. These 27 donors, there's a fair amount of money at risk there. We don't want to lose those. So we want to put attention to those. And then, like I said, there's a attrition warning detail that goes with that. Once I've identified what I want to look at, all my details in here, and I can just pick out the segments or the risk levels that and the segments that I want to focus on and decide what to do. Declining donor amount, growth within segment. That's an important thing. If you get stale with your asks, like what we see a lot is the mode gift, the most common gift in the bottom segment sits around $100 or sits right on $100. That just means all your appeals have a $100 box. $100 in 2025 is not the same as $100 in 2015. So if you haven't changed that in 10 years, you probably should consider moving that up slowly and testing what happens with your donors. Can you convert 90% of those $100 donors to $125 donors if you include 125 as your primary ask? Things like that. So it gives you visibility into how to grow giving within a segment. The other thing we look for is upward segment migration. How do I identify and move middle segment donors up into the top segment if they're so inclined? This helps me, I look at things like engagement streaks. So, how many years has this person given? What's the current streak they're on? This is early in the year, so a lot of these are at 0. The average number of gifts they've given, total giving last year, total giving the prior year. This is a big difference here. A lot of times when you have a large gift for somebody, they may not make any gifts the following year. Our lapsed donor report, for example, for top donors, there's a 12-month version, a 15-month version, and an 18-month version. A lot of development officers don't like to work on a 12-month cycle. They feel like it's a little compressed, so they don't consider a donor lapsed until maybe the 15 or 18-month period. And that's when they start getting concerned. Large gift growth is another important area. You want to see where your 75th percentile of gifts within a individual within an individual list of gifts from a segment. So take all the gifts from a segment, not the annual giving, but the gifts, and find the 75th percentile, the 75th percentile being towards the top, and track that over time. That number should be going up over time if you have a healthy donor base. If you have a lot of donors whose 75th percentile gift is greater than the next level up, 25th percentile, so a lot of 75th percentile, so if your 75th percentile gift amount is greater at the middle segment is greater than the 25th percentile gift amount at the top segment, you've got some donors at the top that are already of top of your middle segment that are already making gifts commensurate with some of your top level donors, and they might be able to be encouraged to give a little more to get into the top segment. Recaptured donors, I talked about a little bit. That's a very important segment. And then we've got a bunch of analytics around tracking donors through their third gift. So we're looking at things like where second-time donors are, date of the first gift amount, second gift amount, where they are in which segment they're in, months since the second gift, what the trend was that gift larger or smaller, and then some action priorities to go with that. Health checks, these are just things like what's going on in your donor base. These donor scores give you an at-a-glance visibility as to over the last X number of years, has this individual donor's annual giving gone up or down? Have they given more frequently or less frequently? We give you a really easy way to see this data. And you can go find all this data in your CRM, but it'll take you forever. So we pull it out, we organize it, and whatever you are in the mood to work on or have on your list to work on, you can start working on immediately. Again, I talked about this briefly. These are just prospect lists. So this is a middle donor segment upgrade prospect list. Lots of variations on those. If you just want to send somebody out and say, here, these are our bottom donors or middle donors that don't have an assigned gift officer, but there's a lot of potential. Let's come up with a plan for how to address them a little more effectively, a little more personally maybe, and see what we can do there. All right, so that is the entire platform. You can also search, by a name. I showed that, I guess, within the months. Let's see. Let's switch to months real quick. I can also go in here and search for lapse mitigation, and it'll filter down just to my lapse mitigation reports for a given month. So we got a lot of ways in this little simple interface to find the data you want quickly. Last thing everybody always wants to know is, where'd my deck go? So how do you think about the value? Well, what's the value of 3 additional top segment donors discovered in your data a year? I'm not going to read all this to you. You can kind of look at it. What's it worth to identify the ideal ask amounts for the top of your bottom and middle segments, things like that. If we were building this on the Reporting Express platform for you, and our platform has delivered over 100 million automated reports in the last 5 years for customers. If you wanted all 170, I'm not sure you would, but all 170 at our average implementation cost of $995, that's probably a little bit low, and the average monthly runtime and portal costs of $145 each, you'd pay $169,000 up front, $24,000 a month. If you narrowed it down to your 30 favorite, it'd still cost you $30,000 up front, $4,300 a month. Here's what AI said. I asked 3 different AI models this. What would it cost in people costs to do this with consultants and things? Got some answers like this, $100 to $250 an hour. Average is 151. Custom advanced reporting projects usually range from $5,000 to $25,000. Large nonprofits regularly pay $8K a month for advanced reporting. Typical deliverables, starter dashboards are $1,000 to $2,000 each. Mid-pack with automation, 15 to 50K. Big organizations, 50 to 150, plus integration costs, things like that. You can get the CI Hub with all 170 analytics, plus however many we add to it in the future. Unlimited users, daily automated data refresh. You can export everything. It's in Excel. Feature upgrades, enterprise grade security, $495 a month. This is meant to be the simplest decision there is. I showed this same presentation more or less to a group of CFOs who are not in your business, not fundraisers, and everybody thought it was a no-brainer. They think about things analytically. They realize if you can't find $6,000 of additional revenue out of your existing donor data with all of this information, that you're probably just not trying. So we really price this to be just a silly ROI and a very easy decision. Implementation, I had an implementation slide. We talked about that. It's typically 1 hour. Next day you see analytics. No charge for implementation. 2 days later, all your segmentation's done, and you can start working literally the first day on a lot of the analytics that we provide. So really meant to be very easy, meant to be an easy decision, an easy ask. Your CFO is not gonna complain about this if they understand what it gives you. Neither will CEOs or boards or anybody else. We've got a catalog of analytics if you want to look at it. We're happy to provide that, and happy to do individualized demos, etc. We can send you a sample proposal. There's not a whole lot to it. It's got some really nice graphics and words and things, and it says $495 at the end sign here, or $495 a month annual pay. We do bill this on an annual basis. That's it. That is the meat of the presentation. I think we hit the timing just